The Tomorrow War starring Chris Pratt is now streaming on Amazon Prime Video, and it's a very silly, very fun 90s-style blockbuster. It's an action-adventure story about time travel, killer aliens from outer space, and familial relationships. You know, the usual. It also has a curveball of an ending. What inspired director Chris McKay and writer Zach Dean to take the Tomorrow War in such a surprising direction? We asked them and found out. Having homemade treats around the house is a great idea for when a craving for sweet strikes. And be warned, major spoilers for the film follow. Just when you think the Tomorrow War is over, it isn't. Dan, Pratt, gets the magical serum from his future adult daughter, Yvonne Strahovski, and brings it back to the past to kill the white spike aliens before they can take over the planet. We get a memorable scene of thousands of white spikes massing together to get to Dan before he warps back in time. While it can be tempting to simply pick up a ready-made package of mass-produced cookies to satisfy your sweet tooth, did you know there's a reason why some people have a bigger sweet tooth than others? Home baking doesn't have to be complicated. Nor does it have to require dozens of ingredients and lots of time preparing, as Jessica Morone of Jess Loves Baking demonstrates with this 5-ingredient chocolate caramel cookie bar recipe. We dare you to find a better combination than chocolate and caramel, especially in a cookie bar format, which makes it easy to enjoy. The scale is epic and climatic. And then we're back in almost our time, with a dazed Dan holding the alien-killing venom and 40 minutes left in the movie. Dan then recruits a ragtag group, including fellow future fighters Charlie, Sam Richardson, and Dorian, Edwin Hodge, as well as his super buff dad, James, J.K. Simmons. The actual end of the movie follows the group heading to frozen Russia to kill off the original hibernating white spikes before they wake up and multiply, and the real climatic ending has Simmons and Pratt fighting a single white spike together. That shift was very deliberate. Speaking with Film, McKay shared his thoughts behind the change in scale and the ultimate ending. Thanks to the classic match and a few quick shortcuts, these bars will definitely end up in your regular rotation. Morone remarks, "I've been making them for a few years and they are just so delicious." While she's glad to experiment with other recipes, she confirms, "This is honestly my favorite recipe for bar cookies." Gather the 5 ingredients required for this chocolate caramel cookie bar recipe. Aside from the decadent flavor, one of the appealing factors of these cookie bars is their limited ingredient list. Morone accomplishes this by using a package of double chocolate chunk cookie mix for the base of the bars. "These people that we meet in the beginning of the movie, I wanted them to come back," McKay explained. Charlie in the original version of the movie dies. Dorian dies in the original version of the movie earlier. To turn the powdered cookie mix into a texture that holds, she mixes it with melted butter and an egg. I wanted all those people to come back in a meaningful way. Just a father-son hunting trip, with the world at stake, and come back they did. Although the Betty Crocker brand Morone uses is available in most supermarkets, Morone suggests using other brands of a similar size in case you can't find it. For a slightly different take, you can also experiment with flavors like using chocolate chip cookie mix or sugar cookie mix instead of double chocolate, she notes. Morone keeps the filling equally simple by combining a package of individually wrapped soft caramels with sweetened condensed milk. McKay described the Tomorrow War as starting off as a horror and war movie and then turning into a man on a mission movie. It just becomes this father and son going on a hunting trip together to take out the last bad guy, McKay says. In the end, Chris goes up against it, one-on-one, which to me is just a really great winnowing down of things from a patient's perspective. The caramel candies dissolve into the condensed milk, creating a smooth sweet caramel filling. You saw the biggest stuff in the world. You saw millions of white spikes and explosions and stuff like that. Morone hasn't strayed from the flavor, because I love caramel so much, but if you want to try a different filling, she says, I'm sure something like peanut butter would work. In a large bowl, combine the cookie mix, melted butter, and egg. First things first, set your oven to preheat to 350 F while you assemble the bars. So I wanted to have something that felt different and felt a little more fun. In the end, the real monster is climate change. Another big twist revealed during the final stretch of the film is that the alien white spikes were here all along. Trapped in ice, that is. Line an 8 by 8 inch pan with parchment paper and set it aside. And with climate change causing land frozen for millions of years to thaw, those aliens got out. Screenwriter Zach Dean came up with the idea on a family trip to Iceland. Next, Empty out the contents of the double chocolate cookie mix package into a large bowl. Pour in the melted butter and crack the egg to add it to the bowl. He told Film, "We were in this boat and there's an iceberg's literally floating around. The guide reaches in the water and he grabs this little piece of floating ice with his ice hook and he hands it to my son. And he said, 'Hey, you want to taste something that's 1,000,000 years old?' And I was like, 'Oh my god, that's amazing, right?' So he tastes the ice and I'm tweaked and I go to the guy and I'm like, 'So, how long has this lagoon been here?' I think he's going to tell me thousands of years. Mix everything together until the ingredients form a dough. Press the dough into the prepared pan and bake it now. Transfer 1/2 of the dough into the 8 by 8 inch pan you prepared." And he goes, "This began melting 87 years ago and it'll be gone in 40. And I was like, "Oh my god." And for a minute I looked at my kids and my wife was pregnant, and I was like, I'm literally looking at the demise of my children, as my son's eating this 1,000,000-year-old ice. Dean took that revelation and made it the focus of the movie's more personal third act. It's a de-escalation of scale, but an escalation of personal stakes, he explained. Just when you thought, okay, I'm maybe getting a little tired of giant fights, the story shifts and suddenly it's more personal. Using your hands or a spatula, press the dough firmly into the bottom of the pan, spreading it out so that it fills the base from edge to edge. Just on a pure storytelling approach, it's the right kind of jolt that movie needs at that point, right? That seems about right. Try to ensure that the dough is relatively uniform in thickness since this will be the bottom layer of the bars. You can catch the Tomorrow War, White Spikes and Metaphors alike, on Amazon Prime Video right now. Next, place the pan into the preheated oven for 8 to 10 minutes, until the edges start to firm up and the center is set. You'll use the other half of the dough later. Melt the caramels and sweetened condensed milk. Now it's time to make the caramel filling. Place a medium saucepan on the stovetop and add the soft caramels, make sure you've unwrapped them, and the sweetened condensed milk. Heat the mixture over low to medium heat until the caramels have completely melted and the texture is smooth. Be sure to keep stirring the contents of the saucepan to prevent them from sticking to the bottom. Once you've reached the desired consistency, remove the saucepan from the heat. Pour the caramel mixture over the cookie base. Now it's time to move on to the next step required to assemble the bars. Carefully pouring the caramel mixture over the cookie base in the 8 by 8 inch pan. Use a spatula to spread it out properly so that the caramel layer is even throughout. You'll want to make sure to get some caramel all the way to the edges so that each bite is satisfyingly rich and delicious. Crumble the rest of the cookie dough on top of the caramel and bake. It's time to add the last layer before baking the bars. Take the remaining half of the cookie dough and crumble it over the top of the caramel. It's fine to have some caramel peeking out, but try to sprinkle the dough across the surface. Pop the pan back into the oven at 350 F and bake the bars for an additional 15 minutes. Since the cookie mix is dark in color, there isn't a simple clue as to when it's done, like it changing to a golden brown, Morone remarks. However, she adds, you can tell by looking at it if the cookie mix in the center looks dry and cooked rather than still wet. She notes that otherwise, you can also touch it to see if it feels dry and set. Once you're satisfied the bars are ready, remove them from the oven. Let the bars cool, then serve these tasty treats. Although you'll want to dig right in, let the bars cool down completely so that the caramel can set. Then, cut them into squares and enjoy these tasty chocolate caramel cookie bars. Morone suggests you store them in a sealed container at room temperature. She says, these will keep for several days and still be just as delicious, even a few days later. Depending on your willpower, you might find yourself in the same position as Morone, who says, they are so dangerous that I have to give the extras away so I don't end up eating them all. 1. 17.5 ounce, package double chocolate chunk cookie mix 1/2 cup butter, melted 1 egg 1, 11 ounce, package individually wrapped soft caramels 1/3 cup sweetened condensed milk. Preheat your oven to 350 F. Line an 8 by 8 inch pan with parchment paper, then set it aside. In a large bowl, combine the cookie mix, melted butter, and egg and mix everything until the dough comes together. Press 1/2 of the dough into the bottom of the prepared pan and bake it in the preheated oven for 8 to 10 minutes, until the edges are firm and the center is set. In a medium saucepan, combine the unwrapped caramels with the sweetened condensed milk. Heat the contents of the saucepan over medium-low heat until the caramels have melted and the mixture is smooth. Pour the heated caramel over the baked cookie base. Crumble up the remaining half of the cookie dough and sprinkle it over the caramel layer. Bake the bars in the preheated oven for another 15 minutes until the center looks dry. Remove them from the oven and let them cool completely until they set. Cut the bars into squares and serve.